there's something magical there, right? And you feel it, and you're like, I want my kid to have that feeling, right? Not necessarily I want my kid to go on that ride. I want my kid to watch that show. I want to see that twinkle in my kid's eye. That's what I'm going to pay you an exorbitant amount of money for, is to make my kid have that twinkle in their eye. And in the attractions industry, that's maybe what we aspire to. But if you're in a bookstore or a coffee shop, you're not maybe going for the twinkle in your kid's eyes, but there's something else you're going to feel: a sense of community, a sense of belonging, a sense of I'm getting the very best cup of coffee I'm ever going to drink in my entire life, and drink it in a awesome place. So there's that story behind where you are, and it's almost always about feel, not necessarily about buy one, get one free, even though that's a lot of times what we'll resort to.
Welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros podcast.
Hey, Matt, how's it going?
It's going fantastically, Josh. How are you?
Ooh, I'm doing great. Question for you.
Yes.
Have you ever built a tiki bar?
Let me think. No, I've never built a tiki bar. Have you?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, that's 2 out of the 3 people on today's podcast that have built a tiki bar.
It is. As you know, I used to frequent Jimmy Buffett concerts when he was still touring. Sadly, he left us a few years ago, and I along with a couple of friends, we realized that we had a lot of things to bring with us to the concert, to the tailgate, but we didn't really have a way to store it all. So we thought, hey, we should find a way to store all the stuff that we're bringing, and B, we should build the tiki bar. So because this is a one-day experience at a time, we had to make this very portable. And we had the day, so we could take a little bit of time to set up, but we're not like construction. We're not like bringing like power tools to like set up a huge bar. So we kind of were inspired a little bit by Lincoln Logs, I would say. Maybe thinking like retroactively of, could we take pieces of wood that are modular, that can fit into place, and then we know exactly where everything's going, and then we got a bamboo, I don't know, bamboo skirt, probably the best way to put it, to surround it so that it concealed all the mostly beverages that were stored, behind it, and we built a portable tiki bar that we could put in usually my car. I was the one with the SUV, and take it to the Jimmy Buffett concert, and we clocked how quickly we could set it up. And our fastest time was 1 minute, 46 seconds.
That's impressive.
And we were up and rolling.
So now, is this a tiki bar where you would serve drinks to others as they would come by, or was it just for you and your friends?
It was to kind of be the anchor landmark of our tailgate space. And as a result, it served our group, but it also attracted attention as well. At the Jimmy Buffett tailgate, people are always walking around and seeing what other people are up to and other ways that people set up their experience. So there's a lot of sharing that would happen at these events.
Yes. Well, and it also really ties into what we got to talk today about with Scott Brown, who is an attractions marketing leader, if you don't know who Scott Brown is, because we talked a lot about differentiation. We talked about, you had a different tailgate space than anybody else. So this is what made people want to come see you, because it was a unique experience.
That's a really good segue and connect the dots here. And speaking of differentiation, this interview in and of itself was a little bit different, some similarities, but this is not Scott's first time on the podcast. In fact, for those of you who have been following since the beginning, Scott was our very first guest on this show. So we're appreciating him taking the leap and humor these novice podcasters as they kicked off this side project, and it was episode 3 was the episode that his interview came out, and here we are bringing him back in episode 458.
That's right. And he's already committed to episode 1000. So
Yep.
I think we've got him locked in. But a couple things that we talked about. He talked about being an ambassador for service. And I think that's something that rings true for all three of us, knowing that we love the industry and we just want to, kind of sing the praises of service and show everybody how important service is and how we can use this to improve our businesses and all the things that go along with that. Plus all the minutia that goes into executing service properly. And he talks about both sides of the fence.
Yeah, and it's interesting hearing a marketing guy talk about service, but also they're very much intertwined. He is a marketing guy, but he's so passionate about service, and he says when it comes to marketing, everything is marketing. Guest service is marketing, and marketing is guest service, and everything funnels into the concept of marketing that helps promote your business, or that could detract from the brand. It could be the condition of your parking lot and the way that the walls are painted as people are coming in. So he says that everything is marketing.
But let's not confuse that with trying to market to everyone, right? Because one of the other things we talk about is serving your niche. So understanding who your audience is, understanding that it may be a certain demographic, a certain group. And I love the way he said, you may speak to that group differently based on who they are, based on their interests. And you may be able to resonate even deeper with them because of the connection that you're making. And I thought that was just such a great point to think about, not to cast this incredibly wide net, because you're not going to appeal to everybody or anybody when you are that kind of vanilla. But when you're really speaking to specific people, that's when you're going to make a connection.
Yeah, absolutely. So should we raise our tiki glass and get to this interview with Scott Brown?
Let's take our shrunken heads and do it.
Kungaloosh.
Hey, Scott, welcome back to the Attraction Pros podcast. How you doing today?
I am doing great.
Awesome. So you were episode 3 way back in the day. So get us caught up. What's going on with Scott Brown these days?
Well, one, you guys obviously did not anticipate the trajectory of your show based on having me as an early guest. It's amazing what you leapfrogged into after having me on there so early in the show. But yeah, so I've been plugging away. So I had since I first spoke with you guys, I think I was at Family Entertainment Group at that point in time, and I just finished up my tenure with them now. So now I've got my daytimes free to sit and talk to the Attraction Pros.
Nice. So, like Matt mentioned, you were episode 3. You were our very first guest. Episode 1 was like a 2-minute, hey, you should check out this new podcast we're starting. Episode 2 was Matt asking me how to post on Instagram, something like that, like in 2017. Episode 3 is when we kicked it off, our very first interview with Scott Brown.
All right. I thought I was first, Josh. I thought I was first, but you guys said 3, and I was like, you know what? You took my whole mojo, because I really thought I was your first episode, but
we warm up the audience a little bit before.
I was the first guest. There you go. All right.
So
I reclaim my title.
Do you feel honored, pressured, or partially responsible for everything that's happened after that?
I certainly don't feel responsible, because if people just listen to that episode, they wouldn't be going anywhere this many episodes into it. So you guys are fully responsible for how far you've gone. But I am honored to get back again. I think anytime, it's like getting invited back twice to Johnny Carson in the day. You might get 1, but you don't get 2. So I'm honored to be back with you guys. No pressure.
No pressure. Well, it's an honor to have you back. So, Scott, if people didn't listen to episode 3, which I can't imagine them not listening to it, give us a little bit more about your background, just so people have a little flavor of who Scott Brown is.
Yeah, sure. So, like you guys, I am a lover of amusement and attraction industry. I based almost my entire career in the industry. So I'll date myself here, but the first shift I ever worked at a family entertainment center was planting on a miniature golf course back in 1987. And I went on to become a director of marketing and then a GM at a location. Worked for a company in my history where we made websites and apps for amusement parks and attractions. Did that for a while, and then like I opened with, I spent almost the last decade with Family Entertainment Group doing marketing for them. So in some way or another, I've worked in the industry almost literally my entire career, and it's something that I do because I really love this industry. And I also started, like you guys, being an ambassador for service as well, believer in guest service. And when I first became a GM back in the olden days, I've always been a fan of the Disney parks, and I always wanted to replicate their service models. So, I read all the books, did all the things, and wrote my training programs, and really enjoyed doing that training and teaching my team kind of some philosophies and trying to bring those ideas to life. And so between guest services and marketing, that's kind of been my amusement theme park, family entertainment center journey.
When you say being an ambassador for service, and you said being kind of a fan of the Disney model and trying to replicate that, can you talk a little bit about how that translates into an organization that is distinctly not Disney? Because I hear a lot, in the industry, people will say, we want to be like Disney, and of course it's very noble, it's very aspirational, very complementary to Disney. But sometimes I say, well, no, you don't want to be like Disney. You want to be like you want to maybe kind of strip out some of those elements of them. So maybe kind of drawing the line as far as, yes, we should all be like this because Disney does it, but also very much be uniquely like yourself as well.
Yeah, I think aspiring, just even as in life, if like I'm seeing Josh on screen, I'm like, I want to be Josh. Well, I can't be Josh, but if Josh does things, I can aspire to do things like Josh, right? And be inspired by those things. And that's where a lot of businesses fail. And I know I'm kind of not really preaching here, but preaching to the choir on this one is, excellent service, guest service is easy to understand, but it is very difficult to execute because it's really very woven into the people leading the organizations, and it's tied into operations, and it's not just a feel good smile, back in the day, just, please and thank yous. It's a lot more than that, and it's difficult to replicate sometimes. But I think you need to understand who you are as a business and who you want to be. If you're into car rentals or, you're a small business, your aspiration shouldn't be to be like Disney, but it's like, what would great service look like to me? And it's easy in a small business, if it's one person or two people, to initiate that because you're the driver. The challenge comes in is building that scalable system where I can hire 5 people, 10 people, 1,000 people that are going to carry that ideology and feel that, not even using Disney's words, but you feel that magic, that where they're truly happy to take care of somebody. And it's hard to maintain that because there are ups and downs in a business cycle, and everybody's not always happy, and they didn't always get the day off they wanted. They didn't always get the raise they wanted. They didn't get their bathroom break when they wanted. And so people need to understand that the team needs to be part of the overall vision, so they have maybe a little bit of that patience and have a little bit of that understanding that, hey, just like my family, this organization I work for isn't perfect, but I know what I'm doing and I enjoy doing that. So I'm going to take that opportunity, even if things aren't perfect. And I find a lot of people, as soon as their job isn't perfect, say, well, this job's not perfect, so I'm not going to be perfect because I'm grumpy today, and they give themselves that out. Being passionate about this, we know that we keep that on and whatever, but getting that message out to, say, a 17-year-old that really hasn't had those experiences, maybe hasn't had as many social interactions as we've had growing up, can be challenging.
So, Scott, can you talk a little bit more about that execution? You talked about a lot about the team members and what that takes, and maybe some of those other lessons you've learned as a GM and in marketing about what it takes to really create an outstanding service culture, no matter where you are, whether it's a car dealership or a theme park.
Yeah, I think it really starts with and probably ends with having the person that is at the top of this initiative truly believe it. And it's not something that is an initiative. It's who I am as a leader as far as being part of this. Like, it's not I read this book and now we're going to do this thing. I always joke, it's not about hanging signs on the wall, with the eagle, you are the wind beneath our wings, our customers, like they do all this stuff. But it's really, taking the time, Matt, if you're my employee, and I'm like truly interested, how you doing today, Matt? What's giving you stress on your shift today, and really caring, go, what, we are going to be shorthanded and we are going to be swamped. So what, I'll make it up to you, but hang in there today, and so one, it's having somebody at the top truly believe, just leave it as a sentence there, truly believe. And then it becomes building that infrastructure where my next level, if I'm the GM, then my park managers or area managers, like I really have to be tight with them and they have to understand the process of what it is, not just be nice, but here's why we treat people this way. Here's how we treat people. Here's how this system works. Because it isn't just being nice. Like I said, it's part of a process. It's part of a decision. It's part of something that's scalable. It starts with caring, which is like a great book, Who Cares? It starts with caring. And if you don't care, you can't do it. So it has those soft skills as well as that process, so it's really to be great at service. In my opinion, it's a combination of the hard skills of knowing how to deal with situations, being trained on how to deal with those situations, but also having the heart and compassion to believe that it's worthwhile to treat somebody that way.
Mm-hmm. That was a nice shameless plug for your book there. Who Cares, by the way? So we'll put that in the show notes. Not to totally switch gears here, but you're talking a lot about guest service and being an ambassador of service and the cultural piece of it. But you're a marketing guy. Are those the same thing? Are they different? Are they intertwined? How do they blend? How does it fit in with your overall identity?
So I love that question, and I think about it all the time. So, one of the things in marketing you say is everything is marketing, and marketing is everything, right? It is ubiquitous in your business. Every experience that a guest has is marketing, right? So we're kind of splitting hairs, but like if advertising is putting out the message, the radio spot, the print ad, the coupon, the website, the email blast, the social post, that's that. But the marketing aspect is really where the word of mouth comes from, where the experiential part of it comes from, right? And so I would say the exact same thing about guest services. Guest services is everything, and everything is guest services, right? So when you pull into the parking lot, what you see, that is part of marketing. Is my parking lot clean and bright and welcoming? That's also part of the guest experience. So I think where marketing ties in is building those expectations of educating your either existing guests or your potential guests that, hey, this is why you should pay attention to us because we're going to make this type of feeling happen for you, right? And so if you are on target with your marketing message and people come to your location and have that feeling, capture that moment, your marketing and guest experience is spot on. If marketing is kind of promising, painting this picture of something great, and I go to your location and that something great's not there, well, marketing just basically set us up to fail because we're not going to deliver on what we promised, right? Conversely, even if your advertising is not great and someone still stumbles into your business and service is awesome, the marketing you're going to get from that is word of mouth, social posts. This place was awesome. These people are great. I never knew this place existed. Didn't look great online, whatever, but I'm here and these people are awesome. So I think they are definitely something that can work in synergy. And if you strategically do that, and it's not just a matter of happenstance that the messaging and your service align. If you really strategically plan for them to align, that's where I think you can really do some really cool stuff.
So one of the things that comes to mind as you talk about guest service and marketing is some of my experiences where those two departments didn't necessarily see eye to eye. So can you talk through how to bridge that gap and build relationships between like operations and marketing?
Yeah, I've always been the one kind of wherever I've worked where I'm the both eyes. I'm the Marty Feldman of both of these industries. I'm looking both ways. So, I think that's true of businesses being siloed in general, right? Where F&B and ops and marketing and training departments aren't really all sitting to say, like, how does this all fit together? So it's not really just service and marketing. It's really business in its entirety. Because again, if you're in food and beverage and you know what kind of experiences you're creating, hey, marketing wants you to create this type of thing because this is our focus and this is what we're doing. And guest services when ops executes it and the fancy drink that's tied into the marketing that's celebrating this thing that we're bringing people in for looks the way it's supposed to look. That's because the 17-year-old took the time to make the frothy beverage look as frothy as it's supposed to and hand it to me with a smile and not just let it across the counter. So depending on the size of the organization, I think probably getting to a larger discussion, but it's making sure that you as an organization move in lockstep and not just in operations or operationally or procedurally, but also philosophically, kind of going back to marketing's everything. And so don't just make this fancy drink for this thing, but here's why we're making it. And here's what we want people to feel when you hand this, beverage over to them, this custom beverage. This is what we want. This is what, and I think that is the next level of being great. Is where I didn't just sit around, come up with an idea, and I made sure ops, F&B, training knew how to execute it. Everybody understands why we're executing this, why this beverage is here. I'm just getting stuck on a beverage, but why this thing is happening, why this event is happening, and what you are responsible for making the guest feel. Because I think that word right there, feel, is what in my marketing I try and put in there is tell people this is what you're going to feel when you buy this, try this, go there. And that's where ops has to execute and deliver on that. But it's kind of an old story now, and a lot has changed with Disney. But over the years, when you see a Disney ad, and I think this is probably still true, but a lot of people have kind of caught up to this. But when you see a Disney ad, it was very rarely focusing on their $1 million of attractions. It was always about a kid holding a balloon, running up to a costumed character, right? If I could say that, or not, or just a magical creature of some kind. But and any location could do this, right? They can have a video of a kid running up and hugging a costume character, but there's something magical there, right? And you feel it, and you're like, I want my kid to have that feeling, right? Not necessarily, I want my kid to go on that ride. I want my kid to watch that show. I want to see that twinkle in my kid's eye. That's what I'm going to pay you an exorbitant amount of money for, is to make my kid have that twinkle in their eye. And in the attractions industry, that's maybe what we aspire to. But if you're in a bookstore or a coffee shop, you're not maybe going for the twinkle in your kid's eyes, but there's something else you're going to feel: a sense of community, a sense of belonging, a sense of I'm getting the very best cup of coffee I'm ever going to drink in my entire life, and drink it in a awesome place. So there's that story behind where you are, and it's almost always about feel, not necessarily about buy one, get one free, even though that's a lot of times what we'll resort to.
So there's a phrase that has come to mind a little bit with a lot of what you're explaining here, and that's when people say that they want to underpromise and overdeliver. You talked about the example of having bad marketing but great service, and that great service becomes great marketing for it. But I've got to imagine that the marketing lens that you look through doesn't like that phrase, underpromise and overdeliver. No. And I'm curious about those who maybe don't have kind of that dual lens of the marketing and the service and the operation to be able to really connect the promise and the delivery when they are very focused on the value and the buy one get one free and the X discount and things like that. Would be very maybe more methodical about it, but then really connecting it to the delivery and the operation piece of it.
Yeah. So when I again wrote my book 20 years ago or whatever, I always felt, even if I was GMs, I always kind of felt like I was in middle management somewhere, because maybe I wasn't making all the financial decisions for where I worked, as far as what was being invested in, where the growth plans were. I was, kind of more in ops. So I sort of felt I was in the middle. And one of the things that I always focused on was controlling what I can control. And if that meant I can control in different scenarios, I can control my team of 20. And maybe there's the whole business is comprised of 100, but I can control this team of 20. My team of 20 is going to be the ninjas, the commandos. They are going to understand the philosophy. They are going to understand how we're doing it and why we do it. Even if I can't make that necessarily be adopted by the whole organization, and in my career anyway, I think that's one of the things that has kind of helped me stay in this industry and do well in the industry, is that people are drawn to it because you're like, that team had such great energy. You guys got a lot of stuff done. You had a tightness. You had you were all moving in lockstep, doing the same thing, understanding why you're doing it. And so if you don't have, let's say you don't have the dual lens, but if you don't have the dual control, it's really just say, what can I control? And that is going to be awesome. Whether I'm operating a single carnival style game and that's me, that's all I do. Well, so help me God, this is going to be the best carnival game here. And maybe it didn't generate as much revenue last year, but now I'm here and it's going to generate more. People are going to go, why? And then I'm going to say, just because this is what I'm doing. And they're like, well, now you're in charge. Well, now I got 5 games that I'm running. And those 5 people are going to, ideally, bring on those same values and strategies, and understand the why and the how, and be able to execute that. So, long answer, control what you can control.
Yeah. But I think it also goes back to the feel portion of it, because you can control what your message is, right? Like from a marketing perspective, right? Yeah. So can you talk a little bit more? I know you talked about the balloon and the little kid in the Disney commercial, but can you talk a little bit more about how organizations can elicit those kind of emotions so people do want to make the decision to come visit them? Like what is it that pulls on people's heartstrings, especially if you don't have the Mickey ears inside that balloon? What pulls on the people's heartstrings to get them to come join?
So I think this is where people really struggle. And I've even seen, and I'm sure you guys have as well, people open up businesses and they know, we'll stay in our industry, they open up a fun place, right? And they're like, this is going to be fun. But sometimes they don't understand why me as a guest would really be drawn to go here. This place is fun. Restaurants open all the time. We're going to have good food. Okay. Sometimes there's not a lot of differentiation between maybe what you're doing, and in your mind there is. You think, there's nobody in our market that does this, and in our industry saying there's no one that does what is fun. They think there's no one that does this particular thing, but that's not the competition. The competition is the things that are fun, the things that can take my discretionary income. So when they're like, I'm going to open this place and no one's seen this kind of place. Well, but you want my fun money that I'm going to go spend at mini golf, maybe not the movie theater, wherever, going to pet a sloth, whatever. There's all these experiences. So where do you fit there? And they don't know that. So if you start with that question, why would someone do business with me or want to spend their discretionary income with me, or whatever, or spend their discretionary time with me, and don't compare it to just the thing just like you. Compare it to all the options I have. So, what I live in Northeast Ohio in Cleveland, right? And so I can go to the zoo, I can go to Cedar Point, I can go to the beautiful metro parks, I can go rent a paddleboard on the lake, I can go to the Science Museum, I can go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So that's what you're competing with. So without going a little bit marketing here, I think that's where you have to identify, let's say all things are kind of equal, right? And then you claim a piece of territory that maybe somebody else could claim. So I'll give you an example from recent history with me. Our in the game location up in Peabody, which is how you say it, near Boston, not Peabody. That's how you want to say it. Don't say that. Peabody. They, didn't have a lot of new attractions or significant change in there since the location opened. Earlier this year, 2 attractions came in, a gel blaster and a human crane. So both those attractions are not maybe e-tickets necessarily, but they're kind of cool. But what we did was said, well, what does this mean? Because again, it's kind of that location, sort of like a Dave & Buster's main event, that type of, food and games and fun, nice, clean, fun environment. But like I said, just like a Dave & Buster's, just like a main event. So why would you come here? So we started playing around with this idea that it's where fun families come to compete and play. Now, could anybody say that? Yeah, I guess. But now we're the place where our messaging was tied around, this is where fun families come to compete and play. And that gives you a bit of insight, like, oh yeah, I want to take my kid. I want to play my kid on this game. I want to challenge them. And they could challenge them anywhere, but bringing in this idea that when you come here, this is the place where you compete and play, right? And that is a piece of turf that no one else is really claiming, but they could, right? And I think that's where your business has to find that piece of land that you can claim and say, well, this is why you come here. And, if you look at like birthday party industry, the best birthdays are here, whatever. Everybody says that, but, is it really? And if it is, why? And show me what's why. And if it's not the best, this is the only place where this is going to happen. Find the unique element to your business, and that could actually be something truly unique that I can only get at your place, or I'm grabbing a piece of the experience that no one else has grabbed. Anybody could, but no one's grabbed it yet, and I'm going to focus on that and sell that, so I become the place, where that's where this is going to happen. And if you look at the shelves in Walmart or your store, they're all filled with products that can all basically claim the same thing, right? They're toothpaste. They're all going to make your teeth white. They're all going to make your breath fresh. They're all going to clean your gums. They're all going to be whatever. And so they're claiming this piece that they could own to give them some product differentiation, even if there isn't a lot. So I think that's where you find you don't need a Mickey Mouse, bringing it full circle, Matt. You need to have some reason that says, like, we're going to go here because this is what I'm going to experience there that I might not be able to experience anybody else. Experience, buy, try, see, whatever the case might be.
I want to unpack this tagline a little bit more, because there was something that I noticed about it. Aside from compete and play, it's where fun families compete and play. The word fun, I feel like, does a lot of heavy lifting in there, because it could have easily been where families compete and play.
Okay.
But it almost requires this self-qualifier for the family to almost prove themselves that they are a fun family. Well, we're a fun family, therefore we're going to come compete and play. Granted, it's a loose qualifier. It's not overly specific. There's an opt-in, opt-out, potentially with it.
Right.
But is there something? I mean, am I looking too deep into this, or is it something that hits into the identity of, well, we need to do this to prove this, even to no one else, ourselves, that we are a fun family, therefore we must go compete and play?
So a big part of that tagline was part of it, and I don't know now how public that line went, although I think parts of it went there. But what was really the driver for that was how we were creating our messaging, right? So it was really an internal driver for our messaging. So like if we just said where families come to compete and play, that's a set of messaging. I might talk a certain way to families. If that's my audience, families, I'm going to talk to them a certain way. But if you say you're talking to fun families, I might talk a little different to those families, right? I might have a little different wordplay. I might have a little different visual. I might present things differently. And that was part of that idea with that campaign, that we're talking to people, families that are fun. So you can talk a little differently. You can show it a little differently versus just families. And when you say families, now you're getting into kind of, white bread, making sure, it's just happy, clean, safe, that kind of thing, not really compelling. But if you get to a fun families competing, when you say that, Josh, if you say that line, I think in your head you right away have a vision of what that looks like, what a fun family that likes to compete and play. You can see what that would look like visually. And so the ads, the radio, the messaging, and even the people themselves that are hearing it go, oh my God, that's me. I'm a fun family and I want to go kick my kid's butt and play this game and beat him at Pop a Shot or whatever the case might be.
Well, and I think that also brings up the kind of the concept of like mass marketing versus, looking at your niche, right? Because fun families, there, to Josh's point, somebody might say, we're not a fun family. We can't go to this place, right? But I also think that there's probably a thought process to say we don't want everyone, although maybe there's some people that do, try to cast that really wide net, but you want those people that are really going to be fans, that are really going to buy into what you're doing, because they're also going to help spread the word with word of mouth. So kind of where do you see that, I guess, difference between marketing for the niche versus marketing for as many people as you can get?
So the first thing you said, and I've heard this a lot for people that I've worked for and with, if you want to be something for everybody, you're going to be something for nobody. And the mass market is not effective. I'll say a bold statement like that, because if you want to be going to Starbucks is not for everybody. Again, this is kind of, they've kind of walked through that, and they've walked through that do you know the fancy words or you don't know the fancy words, and then, scaling it back, that you have to have a place, again, you have to fit somewhere. So while something like a family entertainment center or even a theme park all have their markets and you want all the everybody's, but you're not going to, if that's who you're fishing for, you're not going to get them. So using fishing, if you're going fishing, if you want all the fish out there, you're going to have to probably be trolling, fly fishing, casting, bobbers. You can't do it, right? So you have to say, this is really what I'm going after. And maybe I'll catch some other fish, but this is the fish I want. And that's where, I want fun families or whatever. So even if you're, if I say fun families, that's pretty safe, because I would venture to say some pretty dull, unfun families would classify themselves as fun families, or maybe aspire to be one and would go. But when you say, if you did something like where only the classiest, affluent families come to play, then you're totally segmenting yourself, right? But the most successful businesses, organizations, are not the ones that try to be everything to everybody. They're the ones that mean a lot to somebody. And not riding the Universal Disney thing, but I still like that there's Disney's like this, not really they're changing, but this princess mentality, right? This cute awe thing, and Universal's like this, oh my God thing, and so they're doing the same thing. But demographically, psychographically, you'd see probably some difference in those audiences, but they have, in essence, the same product, right? They're competing for the same dollars, and they would love to have all these people come here and all these people come here, but they find a place. SeaWorld finds its place in there. They all have to find their place, and the better they fulfill that, the more successful they'll be. So, when you talk about mass market, does it mean you never use a billboard? No, you can use a billboard and tell everybody about something sometimes, but really where it's all shaped is in that more specific communication.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm thinking back to fall of 2017 in that first interview, and there was obviously a lot that we talked about with marketing. There were actually a few things that I remember particularly sticking out that I remember kind of were lasting with me. But in the last almost decade, has marketing changed a lot? We had that thing back in 2020. We've got AI. Is that these external factors are at its core? Billboards are still up. And Facebook ads are still Facebook adsing, and I think Google probably has surpassed TripAdvisor of a review platform. But curious as far as just changes in marketing in the last almost decade.
Yeah, I think it's changed. I think it's changed dramatically. When I was in college, again, dating myself, I had a professor in one of my advertising classes that wrote like this DOS program that was advertising effectiveness program, and you type in some numbers and it would spit out this thing that this is the best thing you could spend your money on. I wish I had it on my floppy disk somewhere that I can share, because it was, it's how everything had to start, but it's just so archaic compared to where we are now. Based on the ability of tracking and return on ad spend and click-through rates. I mean, the where the big switch has been is accountability in advertising. Is like what works and what doesn't. People always say, I know half my advertising works, I just don't know which half. So I'm just spending all my money anyway. But you can pretty much tell now which half is working. And I think it's sometimes become very heavily leaning on that statistical analysis to say, this is the message we're putting out there. We A/B tested it, and this is it. And that's where sometimes you have that break away from what we want our guests to feel versus what messages are getting more clicks. Because they're always going to be a winner. Something's always going to do better than something else. But is that the key thing, or is the key thing understanding who we are as a business, what we represent, what we want people to feel, why we want them to come here, and then go do all your statistical analysis, all your breakdown, all your spreadsheets, evaluate all your spend. So I think like I said, the accountability via dashboards and statistics is definitely just an incredibly powerful tool as a whole. So I think that's the biggest change. But I think sometimes the thing that we might lose a little bit is that taking the time to understand the foundation. Just like when you guys go and you do training on service, there's a foundation of service that has to be there, right? And I think in marketing, there has to be a foundation of understanding this is who we are, this is why we exist, this is why someone should come spend their money with me, and not just jump into, I changed the exclamation point to a period in the email and saw which one worked better. There's got to be, that's pretty nuanced and pretty cool, but you have to have a good foundation of knowing what I'm trying to sell first.
Yeah. So Scott, I actually want to go back because I've always loved hearing you talk about marketing and your philosophies on service and things like that. I'm curious kind of where that came from. Like, as Scott Brown was growing up and growing up as a professional, where was the kind of the path that said, I really enjoy marketing. Like, this is something that's really exciting to me.
I did know, honestly, I did know pretty early on that this is the type of thing, whether it's specifically marketing, but this type of thing. When I was really young, people were like, you're such a good talker, you're going to be a great salesman, which is ironically probably the worst thing to be if you're a salesperson. You should be a good listener, not a good talker. But anyway, for me, I think I always loved, my family were lucky enough to take lots of trips to lots of fun places, parks, beaches, tourist attractions, cross-country road trips and things like that. And I always loved, those are always like magical moments for me. Like, I always loved those things, and I still do now. And when I first had the chance to be a part of those things, I'm like, I can totally get people to come here because, if you haven't seen a ball of yarn, you're really not living. You've got to be here, So I either wanted to work at those places, be closely associated with them, or find a way to tell other people about how cool they were. And so that's, like I said, when I went into college, I wanted to be a marine biologist for like 5 minutes because I was already in Florida, and my career advisor said, yeah, don't do that. So I left that behind, and marketing was always something that I enjoyed doing. And I think I've always been a little bit of a showman anyway. Like, as a kid, I was the one doing the family puppet shows, so, and the magic shows. So writing a magic marker, magic show after Thanksgiving dinner in the basement, putting that up, that kind of thing. So I don't know. I think that's always been, it's my creative outlet, I guess I'd say. And that's kind of where I felt like my energies made sense.
So Scott, we still have a few minutes left here before winding down, but You mentioned, early on of trying to, replicate, Disney service and things like that. And, we've just been staring at your background here, and it looks like you've replicated Trader Sam's. And,
We didn't bring this up, but go ahead. Yeah.
can we talk about the Tiki Bar in your basement here?
Yeah, we talked about it before we started recording, but we've gone this whole time and not brought it up. You're like, what the hell? Yeah, this is not an illusion. Before COVID, this was actually my office, my home office. And after COVID, I decided I turned it into something more useful. So I turned it into a tiki bar. But yeah, this is definitely heavily inspired by Trader Sam's. There's windows looking out to an exploding volcano there. I have a portal in front of me here with sharks swimming by, my submersible. But yeah, this was kind of a passion project. I love the tiki thing, and I love Trader Sam's, and this is just part of my escapism that I love. I like being, and it's part of why I like attractions and things like that, is because I love when you step into them. I'm on a spaceship. I'm in a tropical oasis. And this was kind of my opportunity to build something that takes you away, which again is part of why I love the attractions and amusement industry. I didn't show you guys this yet. I don't know how it'll transfer, but my tiki bar does have something. Maybe I'll donate it. Anybody from Disney, I could trade this. I can send this to Trader Ham. But this is me as a shrunken head. It was actually made by an artist, so it actually, like, there's a lot of similarity. So there's shrunken head Scott. Yeah, there you go. So, yeah. So this is a very legit tiki bar when you got your own shrunken head in it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what did you say the name was?
This is the Tiny Tiki Basement Adventure Bar. So if anybody's in Northeast Ohio, and I'll say this real quick too. I do not have a problem, so I do not need an intervention. I'm more of a creative, but I actually have 2 basement bars. So this is the Tiny Tiki, and across the way is the Sink. And the Sink is a Key West inspired bar. So when I come on for episode 1000, I will do the meeting from the Sink over there. So you can actually bar crawl in my basement. So
that is awesome. You should charge admission.
I will. You get this. I got a big platform now, so maybe we'll do this. Yeah.
That's right. Scott, like Josh said, we're getting low on time, but I do have a quick question based on your response to the last one, or maybe 2 questions ago. Do you remember any of those magic tricks?
Oh, I totally do. I am not prepared for any of them, but the day we have the Tiki Bar visit, I will show you some. I definitely have some magic tricks. Always one, not at the ready here, but here, I just watch. Hold on. This isn't a magic trick. So, but just part of the fun and festivity of it all. So this is my magic box right here. Wooden box. I got it from a Polynesian island. I found it there, but so this is my little whoa, spider. So anyway, that's more of a novelty, but still fun to be had. Not quite magic, but that's the best I can do on short notice.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right, Scott, as we wind this down here, if people want to reach out to you, if they want to get a hold of you and learn more about your work, where would you send them?
You could send them 2 ways. I mean, one, I'm on LinkedIn, so you can definitely find me there. I think if you search, I think it's Scott Brown Marketing is my whole name, but if you search Scott Brown, look for Josh, Matt. I'm friends with you guys. They're connected, so you'll find me. But I am on LinkedIn. If someone wants to send me a personal email, you can find me at Brown Gator, Gator, and the number 1, browngator1 at gmail.com. So those are the best ways to get in touch with me.
Excellent. And you'll give everybody directions to the bar crawl that's going to be happening soon, right?
We'll be scheduling that. So I know I don't know if Josh comes up. You guys come to Cedar Point pretty regular. I'm not sure every year, but you can make it a point to come up here and do like a quick visit. I'll give you both. You guys can post some excellent social content.
Nice. Check
out the bars. Stop by. So.
Yeah.
You're welcome to come by.
Well, Coaster NerdCon does end at Cedar Point this year, so we'll have to stay in touch about that.
It's open.
All right. Very good. Well, Scott, this was wonderful to have you back on the Attraction Pros podcast. We really do appreciate your time. And for everybody out there who's watching and listening, just remember, we are all Attraction Pros.